Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is all about investment bags. I never get tired of talking about this topic, and I do think longevity is something that's really important to consider if you are into your luxury bags. And whilst I 100% believe that the biggest factor should be how much you love something, because essentially if you really love something you're going to wear and use it so much more, really getting that cost per wear down. That said, I definitely like to consider longevity because, I definitely don't want to be spending multiple thousands of pounds on something only for it to look outdated in a year or two. So in today's video, I thought I would cover what I consider to be the new classics, as well as potentially what to avoid if you do have longevity in mind. So I hope you guys enjoy this, and let's get started. This video does continue on my collaboration with Mytheresa, who I have worked with so many times before, and for me they are very much still the ultimate in terms of a luxury shopping experience. Everything about buying from them is pretty wonderful, from the actual edit, their curation is always so gorgeous. I always want pretty much everything in their new arrivals, right to the packaging, to the shipping, the customer service. It's always just such a luxurious, easy, wonderful experience, and everything that I'm featuring here today is available from Mytheresa, so I will include links to everything in the description section if you did want to check anything out. I did also want to say that I'm really only focusing in on the new upcoming classics rather than the usual suspects from Chanel, Louis Vuitton, Hermes. Everyone knows those fashion houses do very classic bags. You don't need a video for me to tell you that the Hermes Birkin or the Chanel Classic Flap is a classic style. So I'm really focusing in on what I consider to be the new upcoming classics. So first up is my Gucci Dionysus, and I definitely believe this bag has earned its place in terms of a new classic label. I absolutely love it, and it has been around for quite a few years now, and it still seems to be very, very popular. And this isn't specific to my variation. These come in a whole bunch of different sizes and colours now. So they also have the Super Mini, they have the more square one, they also have a slightly smaller version of my one, and these come in so many different colours as well as the canvas as well. I used to own this one in the canvas, and I'd say out of all the bags that I've sold, that was my #1 kind of big hesitancy. I just wasn't sure if I was making the right decision, but I'm very happy with the one I have now. The canvas one is also a lovely, lovely choice though. They're not always super practical because they are a little bit more on the heavy side and you can't fit a ton in, but I think they're still so popular because of how striking the bag is. It's a stunning, stunning bag. The detail is absolutely beautiful, and I just think it's wonderful. It is so gorgeous to look at. It's really, really fun to wear as well, and I do think that with all the little details, it just really kind of elevates the bag. I love the fact that pretty much everything that Gucci does in terms of their bag design, they usually have a history behind them as well, which I just think helps to make them that little bit more special. So for me, this is absolutely a new classic. It's been popular for quite a few years now, and I do see it as having very, very good longevity. Number 2 on my list is the Loewe Puzzle Bag, and for me this is absolutely a new classic. I actually saw in my bag chat group on Facebook the other day, someone was posting about it and asking if everyone thought it was kind of too trendy, if its time had passed, because she was thinking about getting it. And I was so surprised by the question, because for me this is absolutely a new classic, and it's not really something which I've considered getting just because it's not really my style, but I think it looks so good on so many people, and I just think they've nailed it in terms of the design. It's so unique looking, it's really striking, but it's a little bit more under the radar as well, so it's not really in your face with loads of logos. I think it's absolutely beautiful, and I absolutely think it's a complete new classic. I think it's going to be around for many, many years, and I just love all the different variations as well. And I'd say one thing to try and look at in terms of trying to identify what bags are going to have a bit more longevity is really how popular they are. And if you take something like the Gucci Marmont, which was so crazy popular, it was absolutely everywhere. Whenever a bag which isn't from kind of Chanel or Louis Vuitton becomes that popular that quickly, I do think it has a much steeper fall, and people will inevitably get tired of it a little bit quicker. Whereas when you have something like the Gucci Dionysus or the Loewe Puzzle Bag. It's very, very popular indeed, so you do see it around enough, but it's never absolutely everywhere. And I often think when a bag oversaturates the market and is just absolutely everywhere all the time, that can often mean bad things in terms of its longevity, because people just get tired of it more quickly. Whereas if a bag is popular but isn't absolutely everywhere, it's much more likely to hum along and have much better longevity overall. I definitely think we've seen that with the Loewe Puzzle Bag. Next up, and this probably won't come as a surprise to anyone that I'm including this bag, but the Saint Laurent Loulou I absolutely think is a new classic, and I feel like this is a really well-earned place. I think it's really just so beautiful in its simplicity. It's very quintessentially Saint Laurent, you know, you have that classic kind of YSL logo right there, and it just has all the makings of a very classic bag. It's functional, you know, they mostly come in kind of neutral combinations. It's very, very elegant to look at, to wear, easy to sling on. It's, you know, functional in pretty much every single way, and you do have that very classic silhouette as well. So this one has been around for a few years, and if anything, I actually think it's becoming more popular. There have been some price increases along the way, but it's still, I would say, probably more on the affordable side in terms of very classic bags. It's certainly not cheap at all, but definitely cheaper than a Chanel classic flap, for example, and I just think it has had terrific longevity, and I think it will continue to enjoy very, very good longevity for many years to come. I'm also going to include my puff bag in this selection as well, and I'm kind of surprising myself here because I remember when I first got my first one, which is the larger black one, I absolutely thought it was a trendy bag, and I put that kind of in the category of just bags that I really, really love. I didn't care that they were trendy, I just wanted it because I loved it so much and I was planning on wearing it a ton to get that cost per wear down. And it's really kind of surprised me in how popular they've become. And I remember when I first showed that bag, I had so many people say, oh my god, that's like the ugliest bag ever. And now I feel like it's just kind of started like a little wave of people who just really like and enjoy the design. I am definitely one of them. I think that it's so beautiful and fun to wear, but I do think that there are classic elements to it as well. You know, I do think it's a beautifully made bag. It is a flap design, it's very functional, which always helps as well. So definitely surprised myself, but I'm also surprised that it's here how many years on. It's certainly not a new style now. They have produced so many different variations because of how popular it is. They do have the original larger one, they have the small size, they have the mini now, so a lot of different options depending on what size preference you have, but I think it's really kind of surprised me, and I do think that it's kind of here to stay as well. I also did quickly want to mention their clutches as well, and more specifically their kind of smaller bags with the YSL logo. This is the last Saint Laurent bag I'm including. I don't want it to be a whole video of Saint Laurent bags, albeit I do think they do many different classic styles, but I do get a lot of questions about this specific bag and that specific bag. But I would say a general rule of thumb when it comes to identifying bags which have a bit more longevity is, one, whether it is a classic kind of shape and size. So a clutch, these don't really change too much. The silhouette has been around for decades. A clutch is a clutch essentially, same as, you know, a wallet on a chain, the same as a camera bag, you know, all those bags are pretty classic shapes. But I'd also say that the presence of the YSL logo really helps, and YSL obviously underwent a name change. They went from Yves Saint Laurent to just Saint Laurent, so they dropped the first bit, but even though they changed their name, they did actually keep hold of the YSL because they knew how classic it was, and that really does have a lot of staying power, and it really does help kind of define the longevity of the bag, which is why I also think that so many of their styles are considered more on the classic side, because they were very smart to keep the YSL logo the same. So if you are looking at any different variation, and Saint Laurent do have so many different styles, so it's impossible to name them all, but I would definitely say go for something which is a kind of a nice classic shape or silhouette, and if it does have that YSL logo, you're likely to have something which is going to be more on the classic side. Next up is the Balenciaga Hourglass line, and this is a bag that I only recently got myself, and I would definitely say that I was eyeing this bag up for a while, but I really only went for it when I did think I was sure enough that it wasn't just going to go away after a season, because when a bag is first released, it really is so difficult to tell. So if I am unsure, I do try and wait at least a year or two until I take the plunge, especially if it is on the higher price side. And this one, it definitely isn't cheap, but I do think it's absolutely beautiful. And I do think that Balenciaga have done a great job at just creating a really beautiful bag, which is also very adaptable as well. You know, I do think it looks really good in the smaller sizes. I think it looks really beautiful in the larger size, as well as the small size as well. It comes in just so many different variations, from the kind of smooth leather right through to this mock rock, so many different colors and options. So they do have some very wacky ones, but they do also have some very classic ones as well. I do think that it has decent staying power. You know, it's not a new style at all, but it does seem to be going still very, very strong. It's a very popular selling style for Balenciaga. I do think it's going to continue that way as well. So I'm very excited to have one in my collection. I think it's beautiful in real life. It really is a stunning bag. I do think, and I hope as well, that it is going to have very good longevity. And for my next pick, it is a new in bag that I just got in. So this is the Prada Re-Edition, which many of you will know I have previously owned. I sold that one on, so that was actually the nylon one. I sold it after I got my Louis Vuitton Empreinte Multi-Pochette, because they are fairly similar bags, and I just like the fact that the Louis Vuitton one, you can wear so many different ways. You know, you can wear it as a casual style, you can wear it as a more formal, fancier bag, whereas the nylon version is obviously quite a casual bag by nature. I knew of the full leather versions, but the colors didn't really catch my eye too much until I saw the new arrivals and I saw this color, and I was like, oh my goodness, I absolutely love it. You guys will know I really like my sky blue colors, and I thought this was just so stunning. It also comes in the pink, I believe, as well. So it is a full leather version, and what kind of tipped me over the edge with this was the fact that I will be able to wear it just as a hobo, and it is like a very smart looking bag, but you can easily convert it into a casual option, exactly like you can with the multi-pochette. You have all the beautiful details from the Prada logo right there through to the gold details here. And the space is fairly roomy as well. You do have the gold chain right there, as well as the side pocket as well. I will say that the leather really does make a big difference in terms of the look and feel of the bag. Like, it just looks like a completely different style, and maybe that's obvious to people, but I wouldn't have thought just kind of a small change in the material would have that much of an impact, but it does just have such a different vibe, and the color helps too, obviously. But I think this is gorgeous, and I do think that this is another very kind of on the rise classic style. And I've said it before, but I think that so many bags are going to go the way of just multifunctional styles, i.e. bags that you can wear multiple ways. Very rarely now do I only see a bag where you can literally only wear it one way. Usually they do at least come with another kind of longer strap. Usually it's adjustable. I do feel like fashion houses are trying to make their bags a little bit more practical and also just responding to customer demand. And for me, this bag absolutely sits within that category as also kind of like a little bit of a pioneer as well. And I do think it always helps if you're the bag that started it all off. You know, it is very multi-purpose. You can wear it a whole bunch of different ways. And I do think that not only the Re-Edition in general, but also all these kind of styles are very much new classics. And I do think that they are here to stay. And then finally, for my last style, I do have, I don't want to say a question mark, but this is definitely the newest bag on this list, and by default it has a little bit more risk involved just because it's not been around for very long and only time will tell whether it becomes popular over the long term. That said, I do think the signs are good for the Chloe Woody Tote, and that's not often something I say about a Chloe bag. I feel like out of all the luxury brands out there, Chloe are really known for producing designs which, you know, are it bags. They become very popular very quickly, but then they kind of fizzle out after a year or two. I do think that along with maybe the Mini Marcy and the Marcy line in general, the Chloe Woody Tote could have more staying power. It's much more of a different design for them, I think. Usually they don't do practical totes or anything this large, at least in terms of the really distinctive designs. But I think this is kind of unique for them. It does have that larger logo element, which is still incredibly popular, and very, very crucially, it's just a very functional, very useful bag, which is also priced very well as well. So I'm not sure if this bag is going to be around in 10 years time, but I would say definitely it's going to be popular for a good few more years. I don't see it going anywhere anytime soon, and I know it's a bestseller for Chloe. I know it does extremely well for them. I think that's evidenced as well by all the new iterations they are pushing out. I absolutely love mine, and I definitely think this could be a strong contender in terms of new classic bags. And then finally, I did quickly want to touch upon what to avoid if you are trying to make slightly more considered purchases and really trying to invest your money in classic items which are going to stand the test of time. I'd always say to keep in mind as well, this isn't a black and white situation, you know, there's no such thing as only trendy bags over here and only classic bags. It's always a sliding scale. That said, I do think that there are certain factors that come into play when looking at what is going to have good staying power, and the biggest thing here is how classic the design is, and often that's how, I guess, boring the design is as well. So usually speaking, when you have slightly crazier, more wacky designs, that's almost a surefire way of determining that a bag probably isn't going to have a good staying power. And I kind of identified 3 bags which, whilst they are definitely very fun, I'm sure they're well made, these are definitely a little bit crazier and I definitely don't think have good staying power. So the first one is a new arrival from Bottega Veneta, and this is, I'm looking at it on my laptop here, it's a new version of their pouch, and for me this just looks like a sponge. Like, it looks like a cleaning product of some kind. It has a kind of bobbly texture, it looks very fun to play with, but very, very expensive, as are most Bottega items, and this is for me a key example of something which may kind of be, you know, in terms of the silhouette, maybe more on the classic side, but because of the texture and the colour and all the different other elements, this is definitely very out there, a little bit crazy and wacky, definitely a high fashion item, but something for me which is just too out there to really have good staying power as something that is a bit more classic. Similarly, I did see a design from Balmain, and they've done a collaboration with Barbie. Barbie is very classic, everyone loves Barbie, but the design is quite young looking, very fun. It has like a kind of PVC window, and it definitely really plays into that kind of Barbie vibe with the cartoony writing. But another example of something which, even though it may be very fun and trendy and of the moment, because it is a bit more out there, unless it kind of stumbles into collector's territory with the whole Barbie angle, it's just a little bit crazy, a little bit wacky, and just something which I don't think is going to be a particularly classic bag. And then finally, one last example from Balenciaga. So they have released a shopping tote in red, and I don't know if they do this in other colors, but it basically looks like a little shopping basket, and I think it is leather, but it looks almost kind of plasticky from the photos. I'm sure it feels different in real life, but again, another example of something which is a little bit novel. It's definitely quirky, and it's just not going to be one of those classic bags which people kind of want to pair with everything. Definitely a statement item, again, very high fashion, but hopefully those 3 examples give you an idea of, if you want something very classic, they do tend towards more of, you know, a boring design. You know, nothing too wacky generally becomes a really, really classic bag, because essentially I think a lot of what a classic bag comes down to is it functional, is it practical, is it going to elevate your outfit, is it going to go with a lot of things, and is it going to make for a very elegant accessory? And if it's too crazy and wacky, I just don't think that those components always play all that well in terms of just a very classic, timeless design. So my number 1 rule, if it's too crazy and wacky and you do want to invest in classic items, I would always say go for something more streamlined and tried and tested, because those will generally be the items which stand the test of time better. So that is it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. As usual, I will include links to everything I featured in the description section below. If you have any questions for me, anything in this video, or any questions about investment bags or classic bags or anything like that, then leave me a comment and I'll try and get back to you. If you enjoyed the video, please do give us a thumbs up, and as always, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in my next one. Bye, guys.